countdown to the last comic shop in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Guess who's not at San Diego Comic-Con? It is the Last Comic Shop podcast.
That's right. We are at the shop. So if you also didn't go to San Diego, come join us.
We escaped. We were en route to San Diego and then jumped into a raft and swam across the river and we lost Mikey. Sorry, Mikey. But we made it out the other side.
That's true. Wow. All these kind of references for stuff we're going to be talking about on today's show. It's almost like I've got co-hosts here. The host with the most, Andy Larson. Co-host name, J.A. Scott and Chad Smith. And as I said, sometimes it is too expensive to go to such things as San Diego Comic-Con. I used to have lofty ambitions of making it out to that con one year, but then I heard that it's really terrible to get hotels. I don't know. The struggle is real, yo. It's like you spend more money going to this thing than you ever would at any other con ever.
I will go to San Diego Comic-Con when you guys come to Manila Comic-Con. Put your money where your mouth is and come fly over to the other side of the world.
Here's the problem. I would love to go to both ManilaCon and San Diego Comic-Con, but I do put my money where my mouth is, and that mouth is usually kissing new copies of Daredevil that I need for my list, or slobbering over copies of The Amazing Spider-Man that I've wasted all my money on, so I don't have enough money to travel the world to go to all these conventions.
These would be fun cons. I don't get out much. What I do is talk about things that are happening at San Diego Comic-Con. And one of the things we're going to do on today's show, in addition to talking about a Eisner nominated book in Out of Alcatraz, up for Best Limited Series. What we're going to do for the rest of the opening segment is talk about the other folks that are nominated.
Just remember, it's an honor to be nominated. So for all those folks that end up losers, still an honor.
But that's what we do on the Last Comic Shop. We try to educate. And for those folks that may not know about the Eisners, it is one of the biggest awards that is given out to comic bookdom every single year. And it is done at San Diego Comic-Con. So every year at this time, we like to go through some of the key categories that we think are of interest. And not only do that, but say, who do we think is going to win some of these awards? So without further ado, J.A. Scott is traditionally our host for this particular segment. And so what category do we've got up first?
We're going to start with Best Continuing Series. And some of these we've actually featured on the show, not necessarily this year. There are 6 nominations. Absolute Batman by Scott Snyder, Nick Dragotta, and others from DC. Absolute Wonder Woman by Kelly Thompson, Hayden Sherman, and Matthias D. Ilias. The Department of Truth by James Tynion IV and Martin Simmons. FML by Kelly Sue DeConnick and David Lopez. The Power Fantasy by Kieran Gillen and Casper Wingard. And Storm by Marina Ayudela and Lucas Wernick and others. Of course, we've done 2 rounds of Batman.
We've got Absolute Wonder Woman right down the pike. Any case, the one book on this particular list that I wasn't impressed with, again, not only Department of Truth, which go back in our archives and listen to my scathing review of James Tynion IV's Department of Truth. The other book, which I gave this a shot, and I wasn't a huge fan of, was The Power Fantasy. Traditionally, I like Kieran Gillen. Once and Future, that's Kieran Gillen, and also his Darth Vader. So I gave Power Fantasy a try, and it just wasn't for me.
Well, so the beauty of the Eisner Awards, and it's, the industry recognizing that, some of the best work in the industry, is that you pick out those things that say, hey, this slipped under my radar. Like Absolute Batman, everybody knows that's the hottest thing right now. Absolute Wonder Woman is a book that I think might even be better than Absolute Batman. And the Power Fantasy, I did pick up one of the spin-off books because it had a funky Absolute Batman homage cover, but I haven't read it yet. But Storm is a book that has flown totally under my radar. And I've been bagging on Marvel quite a bit, and they got one nominated here for Best Continuing Series. So that's something that I'm going to have to put a pin in that one and see if I can come back and find some issues of Storm to see what's happening there. But yeah, Kelly Sue DeConnick, she's a known quantity. I always like Kelly Sue books, but I have not read FML.
Do you like the premise for FML, which is about metal teenagers coming of age after some post-apocalyptic thing happens, which we'll see that theme of post-apocalypse carries through a couple of these books. I wonder was because a lot of these were sort of in beginning development right at the tail end of COVID, and now they're coming out or being put out. And so all these artists and writers were sort of dealing with the same thing we all were dealing with, and now we're getting to see the fruits of that. But I don't know if we're ready to go back to that mindset that we had.
Well, one mindset that we have is giving our pick for what do you think is going to win Best Continuing Series. J.A., you just finished up that thought. What do you think is going to win out of these 6?
I don't know who will win, but I really hope that Absolute Wonder Woman does. I will agree with your assessment, Chad. I think it's better than Absolute Batman. It is the best of the Absolute series. Kelly Thompson firing on all cylinders. And I know that wasn't necessarily your favorite art, Andrew, but I liked the Hayden Sherman art.
Yeah, I agree with Jay. The thing about Absolute Wonder Woman is it had that tinge of hopefulness to it that I really want out of my comic books. And so whereas Absolute Batman is like, hell yeah, kick ass! Like Absolute Wonder Woman made me feel a little bit better about humanity. I think that's a really tough nut to crack. And so that's something that I'll root for every time. Absolute Wonder Woman for me.
No. I'm going to go Absolute Bats. Meatball Batman all the way for me. The last year has been a crazy up and down ride. And like I said on that previous show, when we covered Absolute Batman, there's a reason why it sells like hotcakes. It's a reason why people line up around the block to get Absolute Batman. It is still one of the best books out on the market. So if you're talking about the best continuing series, let's go with Batman. Let's talk about that Absolute Joker issue. Let's talk about the awesome spinoffs. Man, I finally got around reading Arc M, the origin of the Arkham Asylum with the Absolute. That is a crazy dark book. Oh my goodness, but so good. Like it gave me chills. It was so good. Oh man, firing on all cylinders. Absolute Batman is the way to go. Let's move on to the next category. What do we got, J.A.?
Best Limited Series. Starting off with yet another Absolute book. This one's Absolute Martian Manhunter by Denise Camp and Javier Rodriguez. Then we have Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees, Rite of Spring by Patrick Horvath. That's the sequel to the original Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees limited series that we covered last year on this show. Bronze Faces by Shobo Schaff and Alexander Tenfunke. Crownsville by Rodney Barnes and Aaliyah Bonetti. Everything Dead and Dying by Tate Brumball and Jacob Phillips. And Out of Alcatraz by Christopher Cantwell and Tyler Crook.
All right, well, let's just jump into what do we think about this? Who do you think's going to win out of this? We're going to start with Chad.
So for me, there are a few that I have not read. I haven't read Bronze Faces, Crownsville, or Everything Dead and Dying. But Out of Alcatraz, which we'll talk about in a little bit, I really enjoyed. Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees isn't necessarily my bag, but I can see that's still a really great book out there. But for me, my pick would be Absolute Martian Manhunter. I'll be 1,000% honest. I think I like it, but I'm not sure. Originally, it was slated to be a 6-issue miniseries, and then I think they expanded it out to 12. But one of my favorite parts about this book is they play with the comic book medium. And I am a sucker for a gimmick. Give me a glow-in-the-dark cover. Let me rub the blood. In Martian Manhunter, they have Martian Vision, where basically like someone is being possessed. And what you have to do is, at the end of the first book, in a well-lit room, you have to look through the page, and then the next page brings out something else in that art. And it is bonkers crazy. In one of the later issues, there's a little chunk at the bottom of the panel, and they're like, something terrible happens underneath this. Tear this out if you don't want people to experience those things. Those sorts of gimmicks, I love it. It's so fun. It's so inventive. And the Javier Rodriguez art, it's such a cool style that the colors, the way everything works, it's really good. And Dennis Camp has just been rocking on all cylinders this past year. So Absolute Martian Manhunter is my way to go.
I think I'm going to still stick with Beneath the Trees, brother. I mean, I really loved the first go around, marrying the children's book illustrations of a Richard Scarry with, like, again, like Dexter and serial killers. Like, these two things, peanut butter and pickles, should not taste this good, but it really does. But there's some other really good ones in there. Out of Alcatraz, which we'll talk about later in the show. In Crownsville, don't sleep on that. That actually was kind of like a Tulsa Massacre kind of moment for me, where I found out about some horrible stuff that happened down at this hospital for the mentally ill in Maryland. And it was a real place. And just some horrific stuff happened there. Kind of an X-Files-esque story too. So,
yeah, I mean, I have to agree with Chad on Absolute Martian Manhunter. I think that probably takes the prize just because it's pushing the boundaries. And that's not to say that the other limited series aren't telling really compelling stories. So it'll be interesting if the voters go sort of towards, let's go with something that's kind of really pushing the envelope, really playing with lots of different elements of the comic medium, because it can go one of two ways on that. Sometimes people really love it. Sometimes people in the moment hate it. Look at what happened to John Byrne's She-Hulk, but then people come around to it years later and say, oh, no, actually, that wasn't bad. That's good.
All right. Third up on our best series is, before we get into some individual awards.
Best new series. We have Assorted Crisis Events by Dennis Camp and Eric Zawadzki. Batman Volume 4 by Matt Fraction and Jorge Jimenez. Black Cat by G. Willow Wilson and Gleg Melnikoff. Exquisite Corpses by James Tinian IV, Michael Walsh, Pornsak Pinchashot, and others. Ghost Pepper by Ludo Lulabi. Temporal by Stephanie Williams and Asia Fulmore.
Now, this is the particular category that always trips me up. These are all books I've wanted to read, unfortunately read none of them. They're all books that are in my read pile, and they should have been books that we read on the show. For some bizarre reason, we didn't. I'm going to vote for Assorted Crisis Events because that's at the top of my pile. I said, Chad, let's read this on the show, and he's like, too late! You had your chance. I could have given it to you, but no, you had to read Stardust and Fletcher Hanks instead. So screw you. I
don't remember this conversation. Maybe the screw you about Fletcher Hanks.
Yes.
But yeah.
But Chad, you've read all of these. Almost, at least.
Almost, yeah. Temporal, I have not read. Ghost Pepper, I tried, and it was good. It wasn't for me. Exquisite Corpses, I'm not normally a big James Tinian fan. Like, all these wealthy families pick a murderer, and they put them together, and the last one standing wins. And so it's a 13-issue series. It's real fun. There's a game that got kickstarted. I enjoyed the heck out of that one. Black Cat has just been fun comic bookery. Batman Volume 4, I think I talked about that one on the show. Everybody's all about Absolute Batman, but the regular Batman book by Fraction and Jimenez, they are doing some really fun stuff in there, including a couple gimmicky things. I think we talked about the Joker issue that has the big fold out, and it's all these different perspectives, and like, it's really good stuff. But as Andy may be misremembering, I've been trying to get him to read Assorted Crisis Events on this show for, it must have been only a year or two, but it's been a long time. That book, it's a tough pitch because it's like Crisis is happening to regular people, where you have all these different weird time anomaly sort of things. And each issue is its own self-contained story. And man, some of the stories in there are so good, but so sad. They have one that's like the dementia issue. And what is it like, with a family member who has dementia, only instead of dementia, it's this time displacement, or sometimes they're acting like an old man and sometimes they're acting like a little child and all the in between. But they do such a good job of pulling at the heartstrings, and it's so good issue after issue. And you're like, oh, the next issue can't be this good. And it's not, it's better. So Assorted Crisis Events by Camp and Zawadzki. That one takes my pick on this category.
I haven't read any of these, though I have shared a couple of those Black Cat covers.
Meow.
So, in any case, let's move on to the individual awards. We got a couple. Starting off with what? Best Writer?
Best Writer, yep. So we have Denise Camp for Absolute Martian Manhunter, Assorted Crisis Events, and The Ultimates. Scott Snyder for Absolute Batman, Batman Deadpool, and You Won't Feel a Thing. Mariko Tamaki for This Place Kills Me. Kelly Thompson for Absolute Wonder Woman, Birds of Prey, and Jeff the Land Shark. James Tynion IV for Something is Killing the Children, and then a whole lot of other stuff. Department of
Every other book.
Exquisite Corpses, Red Bull, it just goes on and on. And Stephanie Williams for Street Sharks, Roots of Madness, and Temporal.
Well, I'm going to give the nod this year to Dennis Camp. So I first saw Dennis Camp's name on that issue of Ultimates. It tells the story of the Ultimate Doctor Doom, which is actually Reed Richards, and it's because the maker tortured him into believing that he was Doctor Doom instead of another Reed Richards from an alternate universe. And there's like these mice or whatever. And I recall at that time just thinking, boy, this guy, he's got another gear. He's got another gear in him. And now you hear about all these books that he's doing. Again, I'll be blunt. If we don't read Assorted Crisis Events on this show by the end of the year, I will eat that stupid cowboy hat of mine because it's going to happen. Now it has to happen. And plus the fact that it seems like all the rest of that list, they've been on the list before. So I'm going to give it to this guy. I think it's due for some new blood at that Best Writer.
Yeah, I like Denise Camp. He's Filipino, so, we got to stand up for the local artists here. Grew up in the Midwest, but born in Philippines. But Kelly Thompson has just been knocking it out of the park. Absolute Wonder Woman and Birds of Prey, which unfortunately came to an end this year. Jeff the Land Shark's just fun. And it's nice to have and be recognized for books that are aimed at the younger audience for Best Writer, because it's not easy to write for younger kids, and I think she nails it.
Yeah, it's not a bad choice in the least. And I know you were a big fan of that Birds of Prey book, and Absolute Wonder Woman is fantastic. This is a tough one because, like, James Tynion puts out so much stuff. Stephanie Williams, I've been really loving her Daredevil stuff, but I guess that's 2026. And Scott Snyder, he's always real good. But for me, it's the Dennis Camp. Andy was gushing about the Ultimates, and I haven't stopped talking about Assorted Crisis Events since I read the first issue, and I'm like, I think this is real good. And even Absolute Martian Manhunter, it's good and weird and might end up real bad in the end. I don't know. But it's something, it's one of the very few comics that's got me so intrigued, and like, you could tell, like, it was supposed to be this, and then they stretched it out a little bit, like, oh, where's this story going to go? Is this going to be real bad? I don't know. But, like, the ride has been incredible. So even if it turns out something where I'm like, oh, I don't know if they stuck the landing, it has been a lot of fun. And I might just be talking out of my other ends here, because it also could land really well. And so Dennis Camp is the guy who, he's now a name I recognize, and if I see his name on a book, I'm picking it up. So he gets the nod for me this year.
Well, we've got one more category before we get into some individual stuff. I mean, I know Chad wants to talk about some covers and things like that. But let's talk about the last thing, which is, again, what is the counterpoint to Best Writer? It's got to be Best Artist, right? Best Penciler Inker, right, J.A.?
None of them are from Marvel, which kind of goes to what we've been saying the last couple of years, that the Marvel house style is just not as exciting as what's going on in Image, what's going on in DC, and we're starting to see that, I think, in the awards. So we've got Elsa Charretier for The City Beneath Her Feet, Sean Phillips for Giant Size Criminal #1, Javier Rodriguez for Absolute Martian Manhunter, Chris Samney for Batman and Robin Year One, Hayden Sherman for Absolute Wonder Woman and Batman Dark Patterns, and Eric Zawadzki for Assorted Crisis Events.
Well, traditionally, J.A., you're our artist guy. Is there somebody you're going to give the nod to this year?
I really enjoyed Hayden Sherman's art. on Absolute Wonder Woman. I know it's not for everyone, but I think that's what made it interesting and arresting at times.
Okay. Chad, what do you say, sir?
So this is tough because so many of these are known quantities. Elsa Chartier, I have her work with Tom King, The Love Everlasting, which I have a stack of those I have to read. Sean Phillips is a known commodity. You see Sean Phillips' name on a book, you know that's good. Javi Rodriguez, I gushed about Absolute Martian Manhunter. I'm really glad that Jay picked Hayden Sherman because he was a revelation this year. His page layouts, as a storyteller, he just seemed like such a mix of some of my favorite artists from the 90s, plus something new and something weird. And Assorted Crisis Events is real good, but you'll never get me to vote against Chris Samnee. I love Chris Samnee so much. That Batman and Robin Year One is such a beautiful book. There's no wasted motion, no wasted lines in a Chris Samnee book. He just, if I could get him to draw every book every time, I would. I think Chris Samnee wins the day and my heart.
Yep. that's Chris Samnee's, I hope, wins this. I if he's up for it, if he's ever up for best artist in a year, like, I'm gonna vote for him. Oh man, coming out of that Toth school, I'll buy his books, I'll read his books. Like, Chris Samnee all the way for me. So any case, before we get to commercial break, I know Chad wanted to talk real fast about some of the covers and some of the best covers out there. I'm going to give a shout out to Drome, which we covered on this show. Jesse Lonergan, that was the revelation for me in the past year. It's up for both Best Writer Artist as well as Best Graphic Album New. Personally, I think it should win for Best Graphic Album New, to be honest. I mean, Jesse Lonergan's great as a writer-artist, but like, that book, I don't know if he'll put out a better book. I hope so. This is so good.
So for me, I wanted to discuss Best Cover Artist just because I feel like this is more of a thing now than it's ever been in my mind. I used to be a guy that I didn't get involved in the variant cover game. You know, I just get the cover A and be done with it. But there's so many great covers out there these days. It's harder and harder to pass some of these by. But you have people like Junie Baugh, Nick Dragotta, Francesco Francavilla, who I always love, Mateus Manhani from Absolute Superman, Absolute Wonder Woman, Mr. Terrific, all these other books. Javier Rodriguez, who's killing on Absolute Martian Manhunter. Hayden Sherman, who J.A.'s already gushed over. It's really tough to stand out these days with so many cover options, and some books get 5, 6, 25 different covers. Kudos to all these people that are moving books. Although with that said, I do like DC's policy of putting the A cover underneath the card stock cover. That way you get both, because I feel like there are some books where, like, you should let the regular artist have the cover. But that's the beautiful thing about people like Nick Dragotta, who he's working hard on those interiors too, or Javi Rodriguez and Hayden Sherman. There's too many good ones to pick, but as comic books become more and more like collectible baseball cards, where it's like, oh, this is pretty, I'll get that. Oh, I like that one. I think these people are doing the lion's share of moving some of these books, I think.
Yeah, and continuing on that trend, with the exception of Matthias Manhanini, all of the other cover artists are working not for Marvel. IDW, Image.
That's true.
Man, Marvel needs to change. I don't know if it's the house style. They're not doing the best work these days.
Listen, R.L. Stine can afford Francesco Francavilla. Marvel can afford Francesco Francavilla. Come on, Marvel.
All right. Well, one thing we're not going to talk about is Marvel during our Repile review. In fact, we're going to talk about Oni Press, who actually had 2 books in Best Limited Series, the Crownville that I talked about, plus Out of Alcatraz, which is this week's book. So stay tuned for more Last Comic Shop right after this.
Just love saying Francesco Francavilla. Francesco Francavilla.
Hey, it's Mikey Wood, frequent Last Comic Shop guest and collector. And as a collector, I'm always in need of boards, bags, long boxes, and more to house all those comics. That's why I use promo code LCSPOD to get 10% off my orders at bcwsupplies.com. Not only does it get me a discount on BCW's already low prices, but I know using LCSPOD at checkout is another way I can show my support to the Last Comic Shop podcast in their continuing mission to bring fans together under that big comic book tent. So if you're in need of comic book supplies, head out to bcwsupplies.com and use promo code LCSPOD today. That's LCSPOD.
I'm Frank. Join me and my friends as we talk about all things geek. Here at Geek Freaks Podcast, we go over the weekly news of everything in geekdom, from movies to TV, to video games, and comic books. We also have a growing YouTube community. Join us as we go over everything in your geek life and share in the love of geekdom.
It's Andy Dufresne who crawled through a river of shit and came out clean on the other side.
It's the Last Comic Shop and our Read Pile Review. Yes, that was Chad giving us some Shawshank, which is, I think, arguably the most famous movie about people breaking out of prison. I don't
know, The Great Escape?
Yeah, but nowadays, I'm sorry, there's no YouTube reels about The Great Escape anymore. There's plenty about Shawshank. Maybe some about Welcome to the Rock. And how those poison balls look just like bath bombs. I do believe that was James Bond, by the way. I think that's Sean Connery's James Bond in that movie.
There you go. That's the fan theory.
I subscribe to that fan theory. Any case, and one thing that is not a theory, but a fact, is that you can save money on all your bags, boards, and boxes over at bcwsupplies.com using the promo code LCSPOD. Break out of paying too much for your comic book supplies. Use that promo code LCSPOD. Save yourself 10%. Come out smelling like roses when you go through checkout.
Some of the best supplies in the business. Those bags are fantastic.
And if you want to put some of your issues of Out of Alcatraz in bags and then boards and in boxes, you'll need to know where to find these people. So who did this particular book, J.A.?
So Out of Alcatraz was a 5-issue miniseries from Oni Press, written by Christopher Cantwell, illustrated and lettered by Tyler Crook.
And although they break out of Alcatraz, Chad, the story really isn't about that. They spend very little time actually breaking out of Alcatraz, right? What's the rest of that 10-cent synopsis?
Well, so the story starts with them having broken out of Alcatraz. Spoilers. But no, so initially there were 4, I was going to say gentlemen, but I don't know if that applies. There are 4 guys trying to break out of Alcatraz. One didn't make it out of the prison because he got stuck in the pipes. One in the raft went overboard, and then that left 2 gentlemen to try to escape. And then you have a story of plans and plans falling through and plans escalating into worse plans and all these terrible things coming about, whether it's the 2 convicts on the run or 2 of the federal agents that are sent to find them, or the woman who's trying to aid the convicts. Everybody's running from something in this book, and some are going to run to the ends of the earth, some are going to run to the ends of themselves, and then some are just going to keep on running until they can't run anymore. But that in a nutshell is Out of Alcatraz.
And it's historical fiction because it's actually based on a real event. It's based on Frank Lee Morris and the Anglin brothers escaping from Alcatraz in 1962. It was then made into a film starring Clint Eastwood as Frank Lee Morris that came out in 1979, where it was one of the highest grossing films of 1979. The movie doesn't answer the question if they survived or not. In real life, no one knows. Everyone assumes they died and they perished in San Francisco Bay.
The cool movie fact about that, the warden in that movie is played by Patrick McGowan, who was very famous as Prisoner. There's 3 people that are going to get that joke. Hopefully they still listen to our show. But in this particular case, again, I was sold on the fact that it was going to be more of an escape. I went into it, even though it said Out of Alcatraz, it is Out of Alcatraz. The entire story happens after they escape, and the official story from the FBI is that they all died escaping from Alcatraz. The U.S. Marshals still have its own open case, and this shows hey, no, they did, and there were things that happened after that. I don't know about this book.
Okay.
I'm not going to say that I didn't enjoy it. There was something about the randomness of everything that happened in this particular tale. Lots of random stuff happens. Originally, there's this woman who's did all the planning or whatever and helped them escape because eventually she's going to sell them to a farm in British Columbia so that she gets the money so she can run away.
Because she's escaping redlining. She's a black woman who could pass as a white woman, but when she tried to buy a house,
got called out. And now they want to prosecute her for mortgage fraud or something. So,
Yes. Yeah. So she's trying to get these folks up to British Columbia so that she can get the money for them. And everything goes awry from there because after spending all this time in prison, none of them want to stay put. None of them want to just stay in a building for a hot second. No.
And what I like about it is the movie makes these guys, they're sort of the anti-hero heroes in the movie. It glosses over to the fact these guys were in prison. They did something that got them sent to prison. They're not good people. and they're not afraid to kill someone who's standing in their way or double cross someone. The one thing I don't understand, maybe I need to reread it or you can explain it to me because I missed it, is how the woman got hooked up with these guys when they were in prison. Like, because obviously she helped organize some of their escape stuff, but how did she get in contact with them in the first place?
I imagine it's one of those, what do you call those visits? Conjugal visits? There are lots of ladies that write to prisoners all the time.
She was a prison pen pal? Come on now. To J.A.'s point, though, not only did they gloss over and all these other things that they were like criminals, I feel like in this particular book, they glossed over the fact, they didn't seem very competent. They didn't seem to be able to stick to a plan. They weren't able to have any sort of focus. It turns out that the one Anglin brother who is actually the most competent member of this gang is the one that goes in the drink and is presumed dead at the beginning of the story. He comes out, not only is he super violent, but he's also at least focused. At least he knows what the hell he wants to do, whether that is killing a bunch of people. At least he has a plan. These other folks just they go into town, they buy stamps, they're sending letters for no good reason. What is this?
Think about, and I don't want to paint with a broad brush, but think about the people that made it to prison. A lot of times they're people that aren't great at plans, right? And so this whole book is all about the different relationships between these people. You have the two brothers. The one that makes it onto the raft and stays is kind of like the go-along guy, where you could tell he's a little bit softer, a little bit more sensitive. He's a guy who's not overly violent. And then he has this abusive older brother who's, plotting all this. And then the other guy, Frank, he's the guy who's just super mean and cruel. He's the cutthroat one. He's going to do whatever it takes to survive. But the problem is he's an idiot. And he can't stick to the plan.
Which is interesting because in the movie, he's made out to be the super smart one. He's the one played by Clint Eastwood. And the brother who goes into the drink and then comes back and starts killing everyone, that's Fred Ward's character. So I think if you've watched the movie and you bring some of those holdups to this story, because they change the characters a lot. I mean, Frank Lee Morris' character is not terribly bright. You're right. It's like the woman tells him, stay put. And so he goes and buys stamps.
In the place where they put all the fugitives' pictures on the wall right there. But not only are these guys terrible people, I mean, you have the woman who she's been dealt a raw hand and she's trying to escape, but she's doing it by selling humans, basically, to go be prisoners in a different way, but at least they'll be outside on the farm where they can run and dig. But then when they go to the bank, they get recognized. And who do they get recognized by? But some guy who's like, yeah, I need you to kill my wife for me. I don't want to do it. But our family is big in this farm. And so, if you don't do it, I'll just sell you up the river and there goes your plans. And so, they're meeting that terrible human. And then the woman goes to the gas station and the attendant follows her home and he's going to try to rape her. You meet that terrible human. And there's just all these terrible people all trying to do terrible things in this story. It's infinitely entertaining, though, to watch all these people on the run for whatever it is they're running to or running from.
Even the FBI guys are running away from sort of their careers because they're gay lovers and they're afraid of being exposed and losing
right, if
their
somebody
careers.
finds out, their careers, their pensions, everything they've worked for, all that's gone.
They feel trapped. I think the whole thing is playing on this idea that everyone is trapped, everyone is imprisoned, quote unquote, in some manner, and so the three escape prisoners from Alcatraz are trapped by this plan and this need to get out of the country, and the woman is trapped by what happened to her and the need to find freedom. So everyone's searching for freedom.
And desperate about it. I mean, that woman brains somebody with a rock.
Well, to your point, Chad, that was the other thing that I had difficulty with, is not only did a lot of these people just seem dumb, but I had a really hard time finding anybody to quote unquote root for. Again, in any sort of story, I have to come in saying like, okay, well, who am I going to feel for? Who am I going to, emote with? Who am I going to say, yeah, let's go. Like, I didn't want the criminals to win.
Dude.
No,
it's Escape from Alcatraz. This is the best crime noir. You want these bad guys to get away with it because why not? The man's just going to keep them up there on that rock, and then they're going from one prison to another prison, and there's nobody good in here, and everybody's just as bad as the next guy. There is nobody to root for, but that's what makes it great.
I finally found my piece by rooting actually for the FBI agent and the U.S. Marshal. And to be honest, the most satisfying part of the story was the conclusion when they get to truly escape. Right? And they just get to be together. And they just get to be
going and working on a work farm, essentially.
Because they might have a wonderful life up there. They work up there for a couple of years, then they buy a little cabin in the woods. They live out their golden years. Who knows?
Some people, all they want is to do some time together.
That's fine. But it wasn't until I decided, no, they're the protagonists. They're the ones that I actually care about. I actually want them to catch these terrible people because none of them are good. Like there's Frank who's talking about being the mayor of some whiskey town or whatever. And he's like,
before it floods.
There was nobody to empathize with. I didn't have anybody other than the FBI agent and the federal. And I actually the guy that I really empathized for was the marshal, who was still doing his job despite the fact that he quit the marshals. But you could tell he was really good at it. He was just dragging that other guy along for the ride. That dude knew what he was doing, so I was like, yeah, get him. Who else was I going to care?
What about Miriam?
No. She hits people with rocks.
But she didn't kill anybody. She's desperate.
She was going to sell people.
Yeah, she's not really the best person.
Not really selling. She's helping transport them for money.
We call that human trafficking, Jay. We don't stick up for that.
I felt for her.
I was
saying I was rooting for her, but I could empathize with her. I don't need to root for somebody in the book. It's not like it's a sporting event.
It's not a baseball game.
I do. In order to enjoy a book, I have to find somebody that I can clearly put in the protagonist column, and whether they're actually a real protagonist or they do despicable things, at least I'm like, all right, well, whatever. I get them.
I like the theme that desperation makes fools of us all. You can't escape. There's not an easy answer. You have to face the music. And whether it's facing the music by running to the ends of the earth like Miriam does, or facing the music by, maybe we just say we're these criminals and go to this prison farm. There's no easy way out.
Let's run for a quick kick before we go to commercial break. Let's talk about the art a little bit. Tyler Crook's art. I really did enjoy the art in this book. I'm not going to say it was simple, but it was kind of to the point. Again, and sometimes with a crime noir book, given the complexity of what was going on and kind of the dumb things people were doing, at least the art, it kind of reminded me of some of the stuff that I've read from back in the 1950s, when EC Comics was putting out some of those true crime comic books. So I dug it. I really did.
Yeah, I like his art. He was actually nominated for an Eisner back in 2016 for Harrow County and won the Russ Manning Award in 2012 for Most Promising Newcomer for BPRD Hell on Earth. So he's been around a while. I love the color palette he chose to use. It reminded me of Badlands, Terrence Malick's 1970s movie, and it's the best way I could describe it is vintage.
For me, he was like a cross between like a Sean Phillips or Jacob Phillips and like a Darwin Cook, where you get those elements of cartooning, but they're also based in reality. And he does such a great job with people's expressions. And you could see like the sad sack brother, and like you could tell his emotions the entire time, or you could see the anger and the rage and the desperation in the character's eyes sometimes. And this is a story, like, I don't want to say there were twists and turns. It just seemed like every turn was like, oh, no, now it's worse. Oh, wait, no. We're trying to get out of the post office, but somebody just killed this guy. Now we have to deal with the body. Oh, no, now he stole this car. Oh, wait, no. It just gets worse and worse and worse as it goes. But Crook does such a great job of emoting with those characters. And, Jay, like you said, with the color palettes, it is very muted. You know, you have a lot of outdoor vistas and things. It's like, oh, there's that taste of freedom there, but they just haven't quite made it yet. Everything's still real dirty and like, I don't know. It's not claustrophobic, but there's an essence there that it's like, oh, these people, they're still stuck. I loved it.
You bought the single issues, right, Chad?
I did, yeah.
What is that cover for issue 4, the Quentin Tarantino homage look?
Oh, where they're opening the suitcase.
No, they're opening the trunk, the car trunk.
Yeah, but isn't the Tarantino, they're looking in the suitcase or whatever?
No, like every movie, he has that shot where they open the trunk.
Ah, there you go. But yeah, the covers were super arresting here, where it's...
Yeah.
The number one got me just because it was very, what you call it, like Hitchcockian almost.
Yeah, very Hitchcockian. Or who's the guy who did the charade binder?
Okay.
Dr. No.
Yeah, but each of the covers has their own like distinct flavor to them. They're not all like one style.
No. Yeah, that's what I like about it.
Well, one thing that we hope you love is our ratings and recommendation section. So stay tuned for more Last Comic Shop right after this.
Hello, Internet. It's George from Shortbox Summary. I started going to the comic shop every week when I was a kid back in 2004, and I thought it was a golden era for the medium. While my first love is comics, my second love is the 2000s. So please join me as I revisit the mid-2000s comic book scene to figure out if the books were good or if I was just 15. This is a retrospective show that takes a look back at Marvel, starting with Avengers Disassembled and talking about the movies, music, TV, sports, and everything in between that made that era what it was. If you like the Last Comic Shop podcast, please give Shortbox Summary a listen, because I like the Last Comic Shop podcast, and I invite those guys on as much as I possibly can. Hope to see you soon, true believers.
All right, we're back with more of the Last Comic Shop, and it is now time for ratings, where we hope that you don't bust out of this podcast prison just yet. We've still got a couple more minutes left in this show. A 1 out of 4 scale from J.A. Scott. For Out of Alcatraz, what are we giving it, J.A.?
Well, it happened a lot throughout this 5-issue run. In fact, so many times that you could probably tally it on a chalkboard. How many double crosses?
Inconceivable.
But were they true double crosses? Again, to my point, some of them just seem like people just being dumb. Just people
Everybody
just
was
like
just crossed to begin with.
We come up with plans that just don't go anywhere. I mean, this is actually the second Christopher Cantwell book we've read on this particular show. For those folks that are interested, go back, revisit our Red Shirts Star Trek show, which was also a J.A. pick. J.A. must like Chris Cantwell. But like Red Shirts, I felt this particular book was kind of a little bit uneven. I really liked the art. The art was like the high point for me. I've read Harrow County before, so Tyler Crook's art does speak to kind of like that vintage, rustic, kind of backwoods motif, which I think fit the characters. Nobody was particularly good looking. Let's just say that in this particular book, these were normal people with somewhat normal problems.
You know, for criminals on the lam.
Broke out of prison.
What is the lam, by the way?
I don't think there's any sheep involved with that. As much as I like the art, the story, I don't know. I don't even know if this really should have been an Eisner nominated book, to be honest. Like, I didn't find anything that stood out for me about this story. The best part, again, other than the story of the FBI agent and the marshal and their love affair and eventually their escape, which I thought was kind of hopeful, and I actually was pulling for them throughout the book, was the fact the one Anglin brother, after coming out of the drink, that's the time bomb that then decides that this book is going to have a violent end. And it's just a matter of like when that unstoppable force catches up with Frank and the other Anglin and Miriam. They don't understand that now that they've escaped, they're running from him. Once he catches up, all shit's going to just break loose and it's going to be bad. So that was good. They were dumb. These criminals were dumb. And everything they did just seemed like, oh my gosh, like stop. Just stand still for a hot second and think about what you're going to do next, because none of this makes a lick of sense. So I don't think this was a particularly good crime noir. It wasn't one of my favorite ones that I've read recently. So I'm only going to give it like a 2.
Inconceivable.
This is okay. This is an average crime noir story, but it was nothing spectacular. J.A.
Lamb, believed to have Old English roots meaning to beat, L-A-M, beat a beat. Hasty retreat, or you're on the lamb. That's apparently where.
Not like a tasty beat. Like,
No.
Lay down that lamb. Okay.
I enjoyed it. I don't need to have a rooting interest in the protagonist to enjoy a story about human failing and the need for personal freedom. I really loved the art. It really did remind me of Badlands, also a movie about two people looking for freedom and killing and running away from the law. So I'm going to give it a solid 3.
Inconceivable.
We've been reading a lot of superhero books of late, so it was a nice change of pace to read something that was a little bit closer to reality. And the conclusion was uplifting. If uplifting could be two law men abandoning their jobs and lives to go work on a farm as slave labor for 2 years, I guess that's uplifting.
It's 4 years, remember?
Oh,
It's
right.
2 years when it was 4 guys.
Yeah.
So, okay, I guess I'll go. I obviously enjoyed this more than you guys did. I thought this read quickly. I enjoyed the historical fiction aspect to it, where it's like we're speculating on what could have happened with, this famous story and nobody knows for sure, and like what could have been. And so I think that stuff is really fun. I thought the art really fit this story. It really sold what they were trying to get across. I could see this as a movie treatment. I would go and see this movie. Do I think it's perfect? No, but I definitely enjoyed my time with it. And so I'm going to give it a solid 3.5 double crosses.
Inconceivable.
3 double crosses and 1 just regular cross. Just
Yeah,
looking
if
cross.
it's just a regular cross, then does that X out one of the double crosses? How does that work mathematically?
I don't know. It's not a well thought out plan, much like this escape, or lack thereof.
Well, one thing that you're going to need math to figure out is probably the bill that will come from the comic book store when you go and get some of the recommendations that we hope that you pick up at your local comic book shop. So not only pick up Out of Alcatraz, which you can find perhaps in single issues or in hardcover, which you can pick up at your local comic book shop, but here's some other things that you might want to check out. But we're going to start off with J.A. J.A., this was your pick this week. Do you have something else for the folks?
Yes, I'm recommending another limited series that's up for an Eisner, Everything Dead and Dying by Tate Brumball and Jacob Phillips. And this is another zombie apocalypse type story. Jack Chandler is the sole survivor on his rural farm. But unlike in most zombie apocalypse books, he's not going out and trying to kill all the zombies. He's trying to live with them because it's his neighbors and his wife. And so then another group of zombie hunters comes through, and he's trying to defend his zombie paradise from the zombie hunters that want to kill the zombies that he's working and living with. So it's an interesting take on the zombie genre, some beautiful art. And I don't know, maybe I just need to get out to the western part of the United States. I've been reading all these open vista type books. The cover for the graphic novel, which is out now and you can pick up, has him milking a cow, but the cow's a zombie cow. So half of the rib cage is showing.
Yikes. Would zombie milk be already spoiled, or?
I guess it would be half decayed. Could you contract zombie stuff from drinking zombie milk?
If you pasteurize it, I'm sure it's fine.
Well, speaking of folks dying, my recommendation this week is another post-apocalyptic story that actually has solid roots in comic books, as being the first real post-apocalyptic manga. That's right. A couple of shows ago, we were talking about folks that are being inducted into the Eisner Hall of Fame, which will also be given out at San Diego Comic-Con in the upcoming days. And one of those folks was the creator of Transor Z, Go Nagai. And as we were talking about Go Nagai and his work on Transor Z, I was intrigued by another work he did called Violence Jack, which is actually the first ever post-apocalyptic manga that was ever created. So I was like, I like post-apocalyptic stories. I kind of need to read this, especially when I found out that in the 60s and 70s, he was pushing the envelope about what you could do with comic books, even in manga, and he was putting a lot of adult themes, and as a result being like censored in places like Australia and other countries because it was too graphic, it was too suggestive, it was pushing the envelope too much. And so I had to check it out. I will say this is not for the kiddies. So even those folks that maybe are used to things like Chainsaw Man or Demon Slayer, no. This is not for you. You definitely have to be over the age of 18. But if you are, then I would highly recommend picking up some Violence Jack. One particular story that I read was called Helltown. There's a violent earthquake in Japan, and like as a result of it, half of the country just gets obliterated. And this happens, like, what if there was like an underground mall, the subway system, and it was closed off by the rest of Japan, and it became Helltown with all the survivors. And so they broke up into like the good people and the bad people and like the supermodels. Shreks. Violence Jack shows up with the fangs of a wolf and the muscles of a gorilla. He's like 11 feet tall. He's like the spirit of vengeance. And he has a big jackknife to beat up all of the gangsters and to save the supermodels. Interesting stuff. Go Nagai was on the cutting edge in the 60s and 70s. His stuff was taken for the beginnings of Mad Max. So yeah, check it out. Chad.
Okay, my pick is a limited series that just came out in the past year or so. It's called Harley and Ivy, Life and Crimes, and it's about Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy. And this is pretty much the exact opposite to the Out of Alcatraz experience. Now, they're both limited series. This one was 6 issues, Out of Alcatraz was 5. They're both about a pair of criminals, but whereas Out of Alcatraz, there's a plan, and everything goes wrong at every turn, and things escalate, and it just gets worse and worse, and people are running away from everything until they destroy themselves. Harley and Ivy is based off these fictional characters. It is dealing with a ton of continuity. It's picking up pre-New 52 continuity out of the Cataclysm when Harley and Ivy first met. Sure, it starts off with a couple of bad ideas. A little while after their first meeting, Ivy's getting ready to blow up Ace Chemicals, and Harley is thinking about taking a permanent dip in a vat of acid when they bump into each other. And then the Joker shows up, and his abuse of power over Harley sets Ivy off, and Harley and Ivy end up escaping together. But from there, it's anything but a well-thought-out plan. As Harley deals with all her emotional baggage with Ivy's support, and then Ivy drops that support because of her own emotional baggage. And then finally, after a few big moments in between, they work with Ma Hunkel to save a couple of kids, and they stop running and actually build a life together. And like I said, it's by Erica Henderson, who I love from her Squirrel Girl work. Henderson, she's funny, she's emotional, she's empathetic. She's a little bit lewd. At one point, Poison Ivy grows a new costume to wear, and it has like the dried out dandelions, and Harley Quinn goes over and gives it the old it makes all the dandelion stuff go away. It's real funny. But anyway, it's very human, this story, where she tells the beginnings of these two broken people coming together to be a couple. The heart and humor make rooting for these people actually really enjoyable. And I mentioned it's two sexy bad girls. The story feels more explorative, not exploitative, but you don't feel yucky after reading this one. And it's all worth your while. It's Harley and Ivy, Life and Crimes by Erica Henderson.
Very cool. With that being said, we hope that you listen to more Last Comic Shop. We're not going to recap what happens at the San Diego Comic-Con, but we'll probably have that out on our socials. And the best way to find our socials, as well as subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss any more comic book talk, is going out to www.lastcomicshoppodcast.com. Rate, review, and subscribe. As I mentioned, we're not going to have the winners of the Eisner Awards next week, but we will have an Eisner-nominated series as we cover the first 7 issues of Absolute Wonder Woman. So all that talk with Absolute Wonder Woman, J.A. loves that book, Chad loves that book, I like that book too, and we're going to be covering it next week. So if you love that stuff, make sure that you're tuning in for that episode.
And while we might be the Last Comic Shop podcast, we don't want to be the last comic shop. So we encourage everybody to get out there and support your local comic shops, whether that's digging through those back issues to find Violent Jack, or scrolling through some of the newer stuff for Everything Dead and Dying, or Harley and Ivy, Life and Crimes, or the book we talked about this week, which was Out of Alcatraz. All that and more potentially waits for you at your local comic shop. And then don't forget to circle back to www.lastcomicshoppodcast.com, where you can find links to our socials like YouTube or Blue Sky or Threads or any of the other places where we're putting information out there. You can also find links to past episodes and, even more important, links to the merch store. Jay, what merch are people going to be escaping with this week potentially?
Fake heads that you can tuck under your pillow if you need to get away from your parents for the night.
Yikes!
They're just made out of paper mache.
Can you put them in a Last Comic Shop shirt, though? So that it makes it look more like...
Yes.
Yeah, right?
It comes with... You buy a shirt, you get the fake head extra for free.
Oh, okay. So if you buy the tote bag, does the head come in the tote bag? If you buy the hat, the ball cap?
No. If you get the tote bag, it comes with a string. You can inflate it and use it as a flotation device. So you
well, there you go. It sounds like you can escape from anywhere you need as long as you've got all your Last Comic Shop gear. You can make a rope out of like the shorts or the hoodies. You just tie a bunch of hoodies together. You can climb down the wall. You can throw socks in the drink to distract sharks because sharks hate socks. That's what I've heard.
And then you wear the hat. So when you have this need to go to the post office to buy stamps, at least you've got a little bit of camouflage.
Yeah, people are looking at that cool hat, not right at your face, which is also on the wall. Posted, wanted, dead or alive, like a Bon Jovi song.
All right, we got to move on. Bags, boards, boxes over at bcwsupplies.com. Use promo code LCSPOD. Save yourself 10% because, again, the best thing you can do with, a promo code if you want to buy comic book supplies. There's also baseball card stuff. It's baseball season. That's still happening, right? Yeah, people are still watching baseball. There was an all-star break or whatever. Yeah, people are doing that. So get your baseball stuff gear. Card sleeves and your little pull-out boxes. Boy, I'm glad I don't have that as also a hobby because I'd be spending a lot of money on comic books.
Yeah, but I figure the return on baseball cards is higher.
What are you doing? This is a comic book podcast.
Exactly.
These are wonderful, valued treasures. This plan's all falling apart. Jesus Louise.
That's right. Nobody wants your Ken Griffey Jr. card. Shush up.
We got heads in our beds now.
Bash Brothers on the same card.
Comes with a syringe.
That's terrible. Who's giving that out? The chalky gum, and now you get a syringe. I I got nothing. I got to get out of this show. Stay tuned
Swing
for
and a
more
miss.
Kind of like Mark McGuire without the steroids. Nothing.
Oh.
Stay tuned for more Last Comic Shop next week. Until then, I was the host of the most, Andy Larson. I was joined by my Bash brothers, Jay Scott and Chad Smith, and we hope that you stay safe. Stay free. That's right. Break out of prison.
Oh boy,
Remember,
we went off the rails at the end of that one.
Yes.
Hold on. Here's another
people
one.
to
Hold on.
escape from prison.
Here's another one. And remember that if you do go to prison, you should get a job at the library, that it has its pros and cons. Pros,
I feel like we're doing time.
cons.
Jeez Louise.
I need some solitary after that one.
Comic Shop Podcast was a 2026 Black Angus production.